preface this, I live in a rural area with a lot of woods around me. There's this local legend that the woods in our area are the host to some deep form of evil, and I've read a lot of teenagers, and even some of the adults talk about how if you look long enough, you'll start to see some random gates that do not belong. The story goes that each one you walk through will make more and more of these strange events happen. And after you walk through the seventh gate, this is where the stories differ. Some say that you will even be transported to hell. Some say it will bring some terrible event to happen in your life, and some people say it's just BS. My friend Jack and I were the latter. One weekend we were sitting in my room, and it was one of those days when we couldn't think of anything to do. Hey, what if we go to the woods and see if we can find one of those gates to hell? I suggested as half of a joke just to see what Jack would think. He chuckled before saying, "Shit, why not? There's nothing else going on today." We went outside and grabbed our bikes and set off down the road. It was about 5 minutes down our street until we reached the trails that led to the woods. Once we made it to the end of the trail, we could no longer ride our bikes, so we ditched them and took off on foot. "So what now?" Jack asked, looking around with a puzzled expression. "I don't really know. I guess we walk around and look for anything out of place," I responded. We started walking further into the woods, trying to find anything of interest. We had been walking for what felt like forever, and the whole area had a slightly unnerving feel. Jack broke the silence, stating, "Dude, I think we should head back." I didn't respond and, for some reason, took a couple more steps forward before seeing something in the distance. "Jack, look! I think it's a gate." He was completely silent and walked forward. There was definitely a wooden gate, but it was so small and not like the huge ornate metal gate that I had pictured. The gate was still weird though. It was probably a mile into the woods and there was no logical reason for a standalone gate to be there. "Huh, I didn't actually expect to see anything," Jack said, surprised. "Let's walk through it." I laughed and started to run towards it. Jack was reluctant for a second, but followed me. As I got close, I got this strange feeling like I shouldn't be here. But I chalked it up to just being in my head and walked through the gate anyways. Jack was right behind me and passed through the gate as well. "I wonder what else is out here. Let's keep going." Jack agreed and we continued walking. We'd walked another 10 minutes before something started happening. Every minute or two, a twig would snap or would sound like someone took a step in our immediate vicinity. We figured it was an animal because every time we heard it, it was in a completely different spot. As soon as it started, I was beginning to get pretty creeped out, and from Jack's face, it seemed he was too. "Hey, you want to head back home and do something else?" I said, trying not to sound like a complete wimp. "Yeah, man, this is starting to weird me out, and I'm sure it's all fake anyways." We turned and started walking the way we came. Now this is where it starts to get weird. I am 100% sure that we're going in the direction that we came from, and we have been walking for longer than we entered the forest, and yet I saw nothing recognizable. "Do you have any idea where we're going? This is the way we came, right?" "Yes, I'm sure this is the way we came. Something is just so off about this." Jack looked like he was starting to freak out a little bit, and I was on the verge as well. We just kept treading the way we came. Maybe our perception was off or something. That's when we saw the second gate. Now, of course, at this point, I had no desire at all to walk through another one of these, but it was like it was pulling me towards it. It took all of my mental effort to not sprint through the gate. I could tell Jack was experiencing the same feeling. As we passed by it, I had this unshakable feeling that I was doing something terrible. I literally almost threw up at this point. As we made it further from the gate, the feeling gradually got better, but merely seconds after the feeling passed, these hushed whispers began. They were constant, but unintelligible. We were basically running at this point and started to panic. We saw another gate, and a sense of dread hit me like a train. The whispers turned into screams. I felt like my ears would rupture from the volume. "Go through the gate! Go through the gate!" Over and over in my head, the pain was excruciating. Feeling as if I had no other choice, I bolted for the gate, and as soon as I made it through, I collapsed, but the voices suddenly vanished. As if they were never there. I just sat there for a minute trying to figure out what the hell was going on. Jack fell to the ground next to me. "I'm sorry, man. I should have never gotten us into this. I thought it was just a myth," I said, trying to keep it together. "It's all right. I didn't believe it either. I don't think we have a choice to leave anymore. We have to go through all the gates." "I think so too. I just hope whatever happens when we make it through all 7 isn't worse than this." With that, we both stood up and began to move with a newfound burst of energy. We planned on getting through the gates quickly so it would all be over. Within a couple minutes, we made it to the 3rd gate and passed through with no problem. After the 3rd gate, the temperature dropped to nearly freezing, and the subtle whispers returned. After the 4th gate, we heard the steps and rustling from earlier, yet this time we saw dark figures just standing there watching us. Yet no matter how hard I looked at them, I couldn't see any defining features. After the 5th gate, now there were dozens of shadows, looking like people watching us from all around, and they began this rhythmic laughing that was barely discernible and very low pitch. After the 6th gate, the temperature suddenly shifted from freezing to uncomfortably warm, and after a few minutes we were both sweating. The shadow figures were still watching, but now they were shuffling around and following behind us. We were approaching the 7th gate, and hesitation set in. We realized the possibilities of what could happen, and I looked back at Jack, wondering if there was any other way out. He looked around, and we were surrounded by the dark figures and had nowhere to even go if we wanted to. He nodded, and I took a final step into the 7th gate. Everything went silent, as if someone hit the mute button on the entire forest. "Did we make it?" Jack whispered. Before I could respond, one of the shadow-like figures from before stepped in front of us, but it was over 10 feet tall and looked to have smoky horns sticking out of its head. It began to speak in a booming voice, yet it had no face or mouth to show that it was speaking. "Welcome. We haven't had visitors for quite a while." I spoke shakily. "Where are we? We just want to go home." The creature chuckled. "We are everything and nowhere at once. This is the place in between what some humans call heaven and hell." Jack spoke this time. "Just please let us out of here. We didn't even know any of this was real." We couldn't tell because expressionless is an understatement for this guy, but he seemed to be pondering and made an audible "Most people come here for power or some form of reward, but I can tell that your intentions are pure. I will give you a way out. The souls trapped here rarely get any form of entertainment, so I propose a simple game. All you must do is reach the gate over there and outrun these hopeless souls, and you will be free." This time when I looked at the gate, it was like how I had pictured. It was a black-tinted metal gate. Ornate golden accents lined the metal, and large torches hung from it. It stood around what I could guess was 150 feet away from us.
"Are you ready? Do you accept these terms?"
the creature asked. Jack and I locked eyes and nodded. "Let's do this."
"Go!"
the dark figure yelled. As he said that, he evaporated into a cloud of smoke, and Jack and I took off faster than we have ever run before. The imprisoned souls began running behind us and from the sides of us, attempting to cut us off. I gave a 1-second glance to the side to see them running so unnaturally it was disturbing how inhuman they were. We both were hyper-focused on the gate, pushing with every second, everything that we had to make it. We were so close. Another 15 seconds and we'd have made it home safe. I heard a thud and looked back to see Jack had tripped onto the ground. I stopped and started to turn to help him. The creatures were only seconds behind him and had caught up as soon as he fell, piling on top of him. A writhing mass of these monsters trapped him, and all I could do was watch as they started to bite and dig into Jack's flesh. Jack looked at me and meekly whispered, "Run." I wanted to stay and fight, but I knew we would both be lost forever. I turned and ran. I heard his screams piercing my ears, but I didn't look back. I knew I wouldn't be able to bear the sight of it. I closed the last couple of feet between the gate and ran through it. I fell to the ground and everything went back. When I woke up, I was back at the start of the path where we had stashed our bikes, where it all started. Ever since it happened, I've been having nightmares and have almost crippling feelings of guilt every day about Jack. I've been thinking about going back and seeing if I can rescue Jack, or at the very least get revenge. Next time I will be prepared, and I definitely won't be bringing anyone else with me. If I do go back, wish me luck, and if I make it, I will update. I want to be clear about why I wrote this. This is a warning. Don't mess with forces you don't understand, and don't ever pass through the gates in the woods.